Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Backbone Podcast, the podcast where common sense still makes sense in a world that is sick and getting sicker. And today, my friends, we're going to do something a little different today. This was something I wanted to get to about a few weeks ago, but other things have it's been so crazy that other things have gotten in the way. But this was a debate on the Piers Morgan show, and we're using Piers Morgan here for informational purposes, of course. And we're going to react to this debate between Andrew Wilson, uh, two males. I won't even call them men because if you see the way they react, they just behavior. They're basically women with nuts. And Tommy Lauren, who is a bimbo, let's just put it that way. She's been famous for a couple of years ago. She did a broadcast on her channel where she calls men boys, and the same demeaning stuff that women do to try to get their point across when they notice that they're getting older and their best years are behind them. We're gonna start this show here. This is Piers, and he is as scummy of a guy as you can get. I mean, this is a worm. I mean, just look at his face. I mean, for the love of God. But let's see what Piers and let's see how this debate goes. Andrew Wilson, of course, is outnumbered here 4-1. Uh, Piers is never going to take the side of men. The two other guys are just, as the kids say today, simping for women, and Tommy's being just her bimbo bitch self. Here we go.
Place. Well, here to debate all this is the host of The Crucible, Andrew Wilson, the radio host, James Barr, the host of Tommy Laren is Fearless on Outkick, Tommy Laren, and the host of The Determined Society, Sean French. Well, welcome to all of you. Andrew Wilson, let me start with you because look, I've got three sons, 31, 27, 24. I think I brought them up to respect women, to not behave in a misogynist way, and to behave in a pretty decent way generally.
So they basically get treated like shit.
But I'm also aware that they've grown up in an era when the likes of Andrew Tate and others have become increasingly dominant in the way that a lot of impressionable young men start to think and view women. And for all that Andrew Tate can say that is positive about getting fit and being successful and confident and so on, there's indisputably a hardcore streak of misogyny that runs through his veins, which I think has been quite damaging to young men. So I'm not all in either way here, but I can certainly see the arguments. Where do you sit?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that so I watched the show and it just goes through a typical feminine view, right? So all of these things are always through the prism of the feminine. So young boys, they don't do well in school. They don't do well in school because it's all programmed for the feminine.
All right. So what he's saying is, right off the bat, what he's saying is true. Unfortunately, I'm in the education field now. It is based solely on girls. The programs are developed, the scholastic programs are developed for girls. They're developed by women. The school, it is, I'm going to call it an industry because that's what it is basically run and operated by women. And even if there are men that are in the school profession, in the education profession, as teachers, administrators, and principals. Principals are the worst, by the way. They are basically feminized. They are scared to death of the women that are in there, especially if there are black women in there or minority women. I could tell you from experience, because you're not going to mistake the principal that I'm working for as being manly. He's a terrified little meatball. So right off the bat, this guy Andrew Wilson is correct. Schools, at least in the United States, from the experience that I've gotten, are totally against boys. They're totally against boys being competitive, being active, being naughty. The whole boys will be boys thing. In the place that I work in, they they want to ban, they hate as my principal had said, he doesn't like the term boys will be boys because it gives boys a way out from being uh, bad, which is just it's oh god, it makes me want to puke, but it's absolutely ridiculous. And look at this guy in the middle with the shirt. I mean, can you believe if the mob, if it was you, he was between you and some killer mob, would how confident would you be? All right, go ahead. Andy.
Stay still, fold your hands, right? Be quiet. Boys are rambunctious. They like to beat each other up. They like to be mischievous. They like to break things. They like to do that kind of stuff. There's no outlet for them to do that stuff. Their teachers are all women, right? There's basically all masculinity.
And this is the reason why a lot of these ADHD cases are all bullshit, because these boys don't have anything wrong with them. Boys are supposed to be bouncing off the walls when they're 8 or 9 years old. If they weren't bouncing off the walls when they were 8 or 9 years old, or 10 or 12, then they would be. Then you should be worried as a parent. But if your son, like mine, was jumping around and being like an animal, running, eating you out of house and home and running up and down the stairs like a kid out of control, well, that's just normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But today's society, in today's feminized, pussy-eyes society, well, we have to put them on Ritalin. We have to put them on whatever, Zoloft or Xanax or whatever they're feeding these kids. And that's why these boys are being destroyed when they become older, young adults and into their 20s. And that's why they're addicted to video games. That's why they're addicted to adult entertainment. That's why they're addicted to being staying at home and being in the basement and not going out and socializing because they've been told not to.
Is now considered toxic. Basically, all of it. The same women who are getting their double shot of espresso on the way over to the school they're about to teach at. They're 24 years old. Sometimes they're banging their own students, right? Hilariously enough. And then these people go out to Parliament. The same women will go to Parliament. They vote to send men off to war to stab each other in the face with bayonets. And you're concerned about toxic masculinity. It cracks me up. It's like the brutal savagery of men is a necessary precondition for society to exist. And we just kind of pretend like it's not. And this show should actually be an indictment on the feminine rather than the masculine, because basically masculinity is just punished everywhere all the time, non-stop.
All right. So I forgot to mention this. They're talking about this stupid show on Netflix called Adolescence, which is about this young boy who was accused of stabbing this young girl in school. I didn't watch it because I can tell it's probably as gay as it gets, and it's probably totally against heterosexual boys, probably white Christian heterosexual males, because that's who, of course, they're looking to destroy completely.
Stop. It's no wonder guys like Andrew Tate get so famous in these spaces. I mean, what's the alternative? The alternative is everything must be feminine, tone policing, nonsense like this. It's ridiculous.
All right, James Barr, you were laughing, but I don't think you'd enjoy
crazy.
what you're hearing.
No, I mean I don't think you've seen the show. Episode 2 is shot entirely in a school. I didn't see one of the female teachers drinking a double shot of espresso at all. None of the teachers were flirting with students. There were male teachers as well. I don't think you're describing the show here. I think you're describing your own insecurities or agenda.
And of course, I don't know if he's gay or not, but he seems to be. That is a typical feminine tactic, right? I'm gonna attack you personally. This is your problem. You don't understand the show because the show is too, evolved for you, which is probably not. It's probably garbage. I don't have Netflix. I don't watch any of that stuff. But and again, he attacks him personally. This is what women do. This is what guys of his persuasion, I'm assuming his persuasion, are doing, and he has no argument here. He's saying, "Oh well, the show episode 2 had males in it, and nobody was doing espresso coffee." The guy was making a point that these women come into work high on caffeine, and if you live in a certain states now, they're high on other things, and they are not in the right state of mind to deal with children.
Yeah, so this doesn't contend with the argument. Like, do you understand that I'm making an argument, the indictment of society itself? based around my ideas that I'm seeing from this show. That's what I'm actually doing. So if you could contend with the fact that male savagery is necessary for the security of a nation, and that women will indeed vote in the future in parliaments to send men off to war to stab each other in the face at 18 years old with bayonets, perhaps you can contend with that before we start, getting into, well, tone policing is actually good and toxic masculinity is actually bad. It's like, I think there needs to be a little bit more toxic masculinity, or what you consider to be toxic masculinity.
Well, great. Good for you.
Nothing.
I'm glad you think so.
Nothing.
No, I mean, I just don't need to argue with that, because
You just unlocked. You just stunlocked. You got nothing.
You're making up.
You
an
do
agenda
seem
that
unusually
I've not said
muted by that,
I've not
James.
said anything. I haven't literally said nothing about.
James,
toxic
you were literally
masculinity
rendered
at all,
silent. Like,
because
you had no way of responding.
I'll tell you what, you can't argue with a completely illogical argument that had, like, I've not made any.
So he can't argue with an illogical argument. Again, that's another personal attack. There was nothing illogical about what this guy said, right? We raise boys in this society to be effeminate, right? Hold hands, understand each other, talk things out. Don't be too competitive. Everybody's going to get a medal. But when they grow up to be 18, 19, 20 years old, and we need them to bomb a city in the Middle East and become snipers and Navy SEALs, that's when they're allowed to be competitive. That's when they're allowed to be savages. That's when they're allowed to break some heads, right? It's only when it suits these people's agendas, right? It's only when it suits their agendas that it's okay for men to be men, real men, the evolved men. Now, let's go on.
It's a logical argument. You may not agree with it.
I've not made any of the
making a perfectly
comments
logical argument
that you are firing at me. None of those comments are things I've said or believe in.
All right, I want to bring Tommy in, because Tommy, you've got a very interesting perspective. I think you've talked about something different. You call it the pussification of men, which is a great phrase. I'd love you to just explain what you mean by that. But also, you're not a fan of Andrew Tate or the influence he has. So that makes you, I think, an interesting commentator in this area. So just explain, first of all, the pussification of men.
All right, Piers. Well, I think, and I can't see you all, so forgive me if I'm incorrect here, but I think I'm the only female on this panel.
Correct.
So I'm really.
She had to make it a point that she's a woman. I don't know why women always have to do this. Black women always have to say that they're black women. It's just one of these silly things. And let me just point out something about Tommy here. There is no way in hell she would ever be on television or be anywhere in the media space if she wasn't good looking. She's a good looking girl, right? Blonde. Everybody's going to try to bed her, right? The problem with her being cute and calling herself a conservative, which she's not, she's a feminist posing as a conservative, which is what a lot of feminists are doing now, is she thinks that what she says means something. And you're going to see here where, again, she's going to turn into a girl right away.
Really anxious to weigh in. Okay, so I think over the last probably 10 years, there has been what I call the pussification of men. It was everything should be about your emotions and your feelings, and men were emasculated, and this whole concept of toxic masculinity warped the minds of a lot of young men, and they felt masculine. They wanted to be masculine, but society was telling them they should be softer, that it was being toxically masculine if you wanted to play sports and chop wood and go to war. And so men were so emasculated and so beat down that then there was this revolution of what was actually toxic masculinity, the Tate brothers and others, which I feel as a female that doesn't represent true masculinity. That to me represents douchebaggery. And as a woman, I want a strong man who is a protector and a provider, that will go to war if need be, that will protect me, protect my family, make money. I see that as being actually masculine. That's like the.
All right, so there we go. So as the banner says, what do women offer men? Really? Well, Tommy just laid out what men offer, what men have to offer to fit in her category as a man, right? You have to protect her. You have to make money. You have to do all the things that traditional men have done for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But
The man that I grew up with, my dad. But what we're seeing
her father probably spoiled the living daylights out of her. And I wonder what her mother was like. That's what I want to know. What was Tommy's mommy like? Was she a little biatch like Tommy is, or did she know her place as a woman? I wonder.
now is these young men who look at Andrew Tate and the Tate brothers and they see somebody who's just quite frankly a douchebag and disrespects women. And because they've been so emasculated, they're like, oh, great, that's a manly man. But that's not right either. So at some point, I think we'll go back to maybe meeting in the middle here. You can be a man who has feelings and emotions, but you can also go to war and protect and defend your family.
So if you have a guy who's going to cry, and we're going to get to the crying part soon, but she wants her cake and she wants to eat it too. She wants a guy that's going to be emotional, tell her his problems, listen to her problems, be supportive. But when Al Qaeda is around the corner, she wants Rambo. It doesn't work like that, Toots. It just doesn't work like that. We have talked about stoicism on this channel over and over and over again. That is so anti-stoic, what she wants. It makes your head explode. And this is what women are like. All of them. I don't want to hear that. No. All of them are this way. Let's meet in the middle. Let's compromise. And debating is fine. But debating, people lose sometimes. Sometimes you're going to lose a debate. And you're just going to have to say, hey, listen, my argument wasn't as good as yours. We'll go your way. You're right. The course of action is this. And listen, she may be right sometimes. She's not right here. She's not right here. This is, and the whole Andrew Tate thing. Anybody who puts Andrew Tate on a pedestal as the guy who's going to lead the way for men in this world, that's absurd. I've listened to this guy. I've listened to some debates with some of these talks with this guy Andrew Tate and a few of these other guys. They're all morons. They talk about this manosphere, and the thing that I get is framing. Oh, you got to put women in your frame. I was in advertising for I had a cup of coffee in advertising, right? About 6 months to a year. I worked for an advertising firm, and when I was very young, I hated it. Frame is advertising 101. What they're doing is they basically looked at advertising for dummies, and they're trying to use it as a way to pick up women. It's because what you're doing is you're using certain words, certain phrases, certain tactics to keep people's attention, and that's what framing is, and all this other bullshit. I'll get into that in a future clip.
I'm hoping we can get back there. But the two extremes right now, they're confusing men, and quite frankly, they're leaving women with few choices. And that's the real tragedy here.
You see,
Now, historically, women never had the choice. Historically, men, their fathers, would choose for them because men are better at these things. Your dad or her dad would meet a guy or a buddy of his who had a son who was doing well, who he thought would be a good match, and he brought that boy home to this girl, and 6 months later they were married. A year later we had a baby on our hands. That's how things used to work, and it worked for a very long time. When women were the ones making the choices, that's when everything started to go topsy-turvy. And what Tommy doesn't realize is women don't choose marriage and family. Men choose, well, at least strong men choose that. Women control sex. Men control marriage and family. Tommy doesn't know that because Tommy's probably married to a simp like the guy next to her.
I completely agree with you. But Andrew, you were shaking your head quite vigorously. Why?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just more feminine or feminist nonsense ultimately. And the covert feminism in society is big, especially on the conservative side. So here's what happens, right? Women need to have feminine virtues for men to be pursuing masculine virtues, for you to say things like, well, men, what I want is for men to protect me and I want men to make money. Well, that's great. What that ends up doing is it gives you a set of privilege in society. What do men get? What do men get for doing that for you? What are we getting from women for doing that? Are we getting chaste virgins on our wedding night? No, we're not getting chaste virgins on our wedding night. Are we getting women of great virtue? No, we're not getting women of great virtue.
Look at Tommy trying to smile through all that plastic surgery and collagen she has on her face. Poor girl. I mean, she's got to be in her early 30s, and she's already filling her face up with plastic. Jesus Christ, the vanity.
The idea of courtly love is supposed to be done for women of great virtue. Where are they? Well, they're nowhere. And so in modernity, in society, when female conservative influencers say this, it's actually a form of covert feminism. They're saying, I want privilege in society, right? But what is it women are giving to men to get it? What are they giving them?
Look at the
Tell me.
Well,
Tommy,
Can I
gave you a
please,
place
Pierce, can I please chime in here?
Yes, you can. And then James can, and then I'll come to you, Sean.
No, I would love to. I love this whole thing of like, if you're a female conservative and you don't believe that men should be douchebags, that all of a sudden you're a covert feminist. Call me a feminist. I really don't give one crap one way or another. But I can tell you this, a lot of these men, these podcast hosts on the right that like to think of themselves as these big masculine men, and what am I getting out of it? I can tell you this.
There's that
All right,
feminism.
I believe
There's
I'm a
that
woman of
feminism
virtue,
coming
right?
out.
Yeah, there's the feminism. Oh,
She just proved his point, and she doesn't even realize it. I've dealt with this for so long, and I'm probably a lot older than anybody who's going to be watching this, but women are just so condescending, and they're so silly. You got to treat them like little girls, and that's why you treat them like.
and then you're interrupting me too.
Didn't
which
take
is great. I
long,
let
did
you
it? Didn't
talk.
take
It's my
long,
turn.
did it?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak
So,
over a man?
yeah, I don't
Are
care
you
if
a
you call me.
strong,
I don't
independent
really care
woman?
if you call me a
strong,
feminist.
independent woman.
Yeah. Yeah. You're actually interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you when you were spewing your bullshit. So now it's my turn. Okay.
Once again, she got personal, saying everything he was saying was bullshit, implying he doesn't have a clue of what he's talking about, and that she's better than him. Another female tactic. I'm better than you. You're lying. You're a bullshit artist. Blah, 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 blah. Personal attacks. That's what women and the guy to her right is very good at.
Okay.
You mean
So,
the truth?
like I said before, so I believe there we go again. Pierce, I'm a woman of virtue. I happen to be independently successful. I have a husband who's not only a former professional athlete, but is currently a professional baseball coach. So is he not a masculine man?
So there's another female tactic. So she's showing that she's virtuous because she's successful, whatever that means. How is she successful? Does she have any children? Or is she monetarily successful? I mean, the only reason why she's successful is because, again, her looks, and she spews her nonsense, and people like to listen to it. Or people get upset with it, and I've heard her before. This broad, I don't know why people put her on there. I think they only put her on there because she's bleach blonde and cute. And by the way, honey, if your husband is your age and he's a baseball coach, that means he sucked as a player. So there's no bragging in that. He's coaching. He's a 31-year-old guy, probably making, whatever coaches in baseball make, and he's trying to help guys out who are making $40 million a year. Trust me, he's feeling emasculated.
I mean, I'm confused here. What's your concept of a masculine man? Mine is a man who respects me.
Yeah, that misses the point, though. Like, you're still not contending with the argument that I'm making.
Neither one of these four have attempted to answer his question. What do women offer men? We know what men have to offer women. We know what men have to offer society. As a matter of fact, we know what white Christian heterosexual males have to give to society. They're the ones that build. They're the ones that defend. They're the ones that create. They're the ones who create small jobs. They're the ones that are in certain aspects of politics and media and entertainment. They're mostly the doctors. They're mostly the lawyers, right? They're the ones that are keeping this dying machine moving. Not the guy to her right. And it's not Tommy Lauren or any of her little friends with slits between their legs. It's not them. It's the white Christian heterosexual males that are being beaten unmercifully. And if we weren't so damn strong, we would have been gone already. I'm telling you, this must be a test from God or the universe, because this is amazing that people can spew this stuff and literally.
What's your
I'm
point?
saying inside of society right this second, right? Masculinity is not only punished, but also women on the right, covert feminists on the right, are constantly and consistently talking about how they need to have privilege in society. I want men. Their version of masculinity is men who take care of us, men who protect us, men who do all of this. Those are all duties that men have towards women. Great. What are the duties that women have towards men? What are the duties that women have towards anything? What do men get out of this arrangement? What are we getting out of this arrangement? Can you tell me?
Going crazy.
I mean,
Well, I
as I
would
was going to
argue
answer
that
a
men
second ago,
innately
Well,
should
I'll
be
tell you-
I don't want to
protectors and
interrupt you.
providers.
Hang on one second. Let Tommy
Most men are
respond.
born that
Let
way.
Tommy respond to that, and then
So she said something very interesting there. She says most men are protectors and providers. They're born that way. But she can't answer the question, what's the woman's role? What are women born for? What are women born that way? None of them can answer this question. And it's either they're avoiding it, or they just don't want to talk about it, or they can't admit it. But the question is valid. What do women offer men? Now, the only real thing that I can think of that women offer men, let's be honest, it's really the only thing, is sex. That's it. I mean, you look at Tommy, she's good looking. I wouldn't mind, pulling her hair a little bit. But after that, do I really want to talk to her? Do I really want to know what her feelings are, what her political stances are, what she thinks about baseball? No. I could care less. I just want to see her wiggle. There are a few things I don't want from her. I don't want her to gain weight. I don't want her to talk. And I don't want her to be a bad cook. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, she's probably never picked up a piece of salt and pepper shaker in her life. She probably doesn't even know where her kitchen is. And I don't believe she has children yet, and she's already in her 30s, so she's a couple of years away from being a geriatric. But nobody's answered this question. What do women offer men?
then I'll come to you, Jez. And then
Yeah,
Sean,
most
you've
men
been
are-
waiting patiently. So
Most men are born to be protectors and providers. I can't imagine my dad saying, you know what, to my mom, you know what, I'm not going to be a protector and a provider unless you do this. That's not how.
Your mom probably already knew what her place was. And stop using your dad. Stop belittling your father. You're embarrassing this guy. To suggest in front of this audience that your dad was such a pussy that he did everything your mother told him to do, which is very possible. Which is very, very possible. The guy was probably just, a wuss at home. But keep it to yourself. This is, again, airing out dirty laundry in the guise of being virtuous and being an evolved woman, which is just laughable.
How real men operate. Real men are protectors and providers, and they.
By the way, anytime a woman tries to tell you what a real man is, just ignore it. Laugh. Because she can't answer what a real woman is. How in God's name is she going to tell you what a real man is? And again, she keeps mentioning that men have to provide and protect. She's telling you the duties of men, but she cannot tell you what the duties are of a woman.
Marry women who hopefully
great.
have
A
some
woman telling
virtue,
us what
but
real
also
men
bring a
are
lot
again.
to the
Great.
table as well, that are great mothers, great wives, caretakers of the home. There's nothing wrong with being a traditional wife and mother. You're misunderstanding me if you think that I think that women should just be out doing whatever.
The fact that she has to point that out, there's nothing wrong with that. being a traditional mom or a mother. That is absurd. That's the greatest job a woman can have. Having a baby, bringing a healthy, beautiful child into the world. What more can you want? Providing a beautiful home, nurturing that child. But no, Tommy would rather be on TV yelling and screaming at guys about stupid politics that had nothing to do with her anyway, and what a real man is. And again, she still hasn't answered what a woman is, what a real woman is, or what a woman would offer to a man.
Whatever they want. I think that there are gender roles that should be respected, but I don't think a man needs to get something out of it to be a manly man, a protector, and a provider.
What about children?
If you think you need to get something out of it, I quite frankly don't consider you a real man.
So there's a there's a personal attack. I was waiting for that. So the personal attack right there is, you're not a real man because you disagree with me. Right? But if she was outside in the street and she was surrounded by a bunch of Middle Eastern guys trying to harass her, believe me, if Andrew Wilson or I or you were walking down the street, she'd be calling for us to defend her, protect her. Why? Because we're real men. She wouldn't be lecturing us about what real men were then.
Okay. Nothing. She have nothing.
But we'll discuss in a moment whether Andrew Wilson is a real man.
Piers, I offer nothing. I offer nothing.
You offer me a lot of things, Tommy. That's why I always love having you on the show. You know that. Let's go to a real man, James Barr.
Thank you. I do see myself as a man. And I know that you were looking at me thinking, well, you're not. You're wearing makeup. You're wearing colorful clothes. Like, look at me. I'm really camp. My nails are painted.
I mean, they are worried.
You know, you're sat there smoking a cigarette. I'd love to get a vape out and start drinking a beer, pints with the lads, just connect with you over that. I think that you have some insane opinions on what women are meant to do for you. It's crazy that you don't appreciate that a woman actually gave birth to you. Like, she gave you a womb for 9 months and then looked after you, I would hope, for the beginning of your life. And you're sat there going, what do women owe men? Women don't owe men anything. No one owes you anything. You have your own life.
Do you understand that if you make an argument and you say
that women are supposed to be on how to win an argument,
in a position, if that women are supposed to be in a position of privilege where men do A, B, C, and D for them, and then I ask, well, what duties do women have? And you say, well, nothing.
No one said that.
And then you wonder, why are men checking out? I don't know why men are checking out.
See, this is the other argument here. Oh, well, a woman gave birth to you. Well, yeah. That's what they're supposed to do. God created women to vessel in a man's child. What else are they for? Women cannot fight in wars. That's nonsense. Can you imagine if the Nazis in 1945 in the Battle of the Bulge saw Tommy Lauren, 44, so Tommy Lauren and 200,000 other broads, walking through the marsh in France, they would have probably cracked up laughing. Or even the guy that's next to her. Can you imagine seeing this guy coming at you, like threatening to kick your ass? You would have a heart attack, cracking up. You'd piss your pants. The argument of, well, a woman carried you in her womb for 9 months. That's nature. That's natural. Something that he'll never experience because I don't think he swings that way.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's
silly, man.
All right, let me bring in the one person who so far hasn't said a word about this. Has a lot of interesting things to say. Sean, welcome to Uncensored. I think one of the key things of this series that's made it so popular is that anyone who's had young sons knows that they are, if you're not careful, they get exposed to a lot of nasty stuff on the internet. We all know this. And a lot of it is this kind of incel stuff, which I think can be a really malevolent influence on impressionable young men. And they gravitate to it. And I think that partly what Andrew's getting at, I agree with, in the sense that following the Me Too Time's Up campaigns, which were in many ways, extremely laudable, brought down a lot of very bad men, no question of that. But the pendulum swung so wildly that I think a lot of young men in particular felt completely disenfranchised from society, felt like they're all being treated like a bunch of young Harvey Weinstein.
The Me Too movement was such nonsense and so destructive, because back in the day when I was a younger man, the place to meet women a lot of times was at work, right? Your job, you saw some girl in the secretary pool, or you saw Alice in the marketing department, you thought she was cute. Hey, you want to go out for a drink? And she said, yeah, great. If she said no, you moved on to Betsy down in advertising. With the Me Too movement, all that stuff stopped because guys were terrified of being sent to HR and losing their jobs for looking at a woman. Forget about talking to her. There were guys losing their jobs. I remember these stories well. There were guys losing their jobs because a woman would say, well, he looked at me and it made me feel uncomfortable, and he's predatory. Well, of course guys are going to stay away from you after that. And Piers Morgan is saying that they're incels. They're not necessarily incels. They don't want to be bothered with this nonsense. I know plenty of guys who are in their mid-20s who are like, dude, I would rather sit home and watch and play video games or smoke pot, as sad as that sounds, than to try to talk to some girl who's going to take my money. I'm going to feed her for free and she's going to ghost me after that. It's not worth it. It's simply not worth it. And then you got to listen to this Tommy tell you what a real man is. I mean, forget about it.
Unless they can prove otherwise. They didn't really know what the rules of engagement were with women, with teenage girls anymore, whatever. They lost their way. And by losing their way, they gravitated, I think, to very loud voices on the internet like Andrew Tate, who I think, like I say, he says a lot of stuff I find myself nodding to, and then he'll say this misogynist stuff, which I just despise it. I see no reason why you should ever want to have a relationship with a woman the way that Andrew Tate wants you to, where it's just...
Again, no one is saying to follow this nincompoop. I wouldn't follow this guy's advice at all. And I don't even think he gives advice. I think he just spews out and rants just to shock people. I think he's just basically the 2025 version of Howard Stern. He just wants his name out there. And every time you mention his name, people are going to look him up on the YouTube or whatever it is, and they're going to see what he has to say. But the guy he's a mental midget. And I don't believe that there are guys in their teens and 20s right now who are bowing down to Andrew Tate. I don't believe that. I think a lot of these kids, a lot of these younger guys today are just so disenchanted with how these girls are, that it's women themselves that have pushed these guys away. It has nothing to do with Andrew Tate. Because some of the things he may be saying may not be totally accurate, but they kind of fit the mold of how these bitches are acting.
Just pure misogyny. Just talk to me first of all about why you think young boys, teenage boys, young men, why they've gravitated to people like Tate. Because I have.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think it's, first of all, we got to understand that we have an amazing responsibility as a parent to lead from the home and to have these open conversations with our young children. All right, whether they're male children, female children, we have to make sure that we're having open door conversations and we are tackling the hard subjects. Because if we don't take care of everything at home, we don't take care of everything in public, like at school, and other forces within society that help raise our children, we always say it takes a village. Well, it certainly does, but it starts at home. And if you cannot have these open conversations and allow your children to be honest and open with how they are feeling about society and the things that they are seeing, they are going to go to misogyny. They're going to go to the Andrew and Tristan Tates of the world, and they're going to learn how to be a man from that. And that is,
again, I grew up in a different world. I bet you if you gave 4 or 5 young boys my son's age, a football, a basketball, a soccer ball, whatever, they wouldn't worry about toxic masculinity and Andrew Tate. You know what they would worry about? Finding a bunch of other guys to play ball with, because that's what I did when I was a kid, and I'm certain that you guys did the same thing. Most boys do not concentrate on this stuff. They're playing Fortnite or whatever these damn video games are. They're playing together. They're playing online together, and they spend hours doing it. And I hate it, but in a way, at least I know where they are. They're not doing a lot of the things that this guy is saying. You must beware that they're not watching the adult entertainment stuff and the only fool stuff, and you must be careful that they're not engaging with some of these wackos on the internet. Yes, that's what a parent has to do, but that's what any responsible parent does. A lot of these parents, like the ones Tommy's referring to, these women are at work being a slave to another man. See, they don't realize that. They want a career. Okay, you want your career? Fine, you're taking orders from another man. She doesn't want to take orders from her husband. She doesn't want to be a sex slave to her husband. She wants to be a copy machine slave to her boss at work. Makes a lot of sense. But this guy seems like he's being a simpy wimp too.
It's not what society needs. It's not what the world needs. That is not masculinity. It is masquerading as misogyny.
How do we protect young men from the easy access at the moment there is to people like Tate? I mean, how do you actually put a ring fence around them so that you can tackle exactly what you've just said, but they're not also being dragged into that world?
It's tough because they're growing up in a world we never grew up in, Piers. We didn't grow up with the internet. We didn't grow up with Bumble,
that's right.
Tinder, Instagram, Facebook.
No, I was taught how to treat women by my mother, my grandmother.
Open the door, right?
Aunts,
Open the door.
A lot of strong women in my family. Very strong.
Oh yeah, strong women. I love when guys say they had strong women in their family. That's a crock of shit. There's no such thing as a strong woman. They're all weak. They're all emotional. And you can tell Piers was raised by a broad or a bunch of broads.
Strong women. And they would just take no crap from the men. So that's the environment I grew up in.
Absolutely. So how do we insulate our children from this? By having conversations, putting parameters around the social media aspects of life and having the conversations at home. Hey, son, hey, daughter, this is what you're going to see out there in the real world. This is what you're going to see on the internet. If you see something like this, that is not how a true man is supposed to act. And hey, that's not how a real man's supposed to treat you.
Right. So
we have to have the conversations.
Yeah. Andrew, do you intrinsically disagree with what you've just heard?
Yeah, I do. I think, again, all of this is always the burden on men, burden on men, burden on men.
Yes, it's always got to be the man's duty, right? It's always got to be the boy that has to watch and be careful. Don't be like that. That's not masculine. We never put any emphasis, at least not in this day and age, on, hey, little girl, hey, daughter, don't spread your legs for the first guy you see. Don't have a body count of 15 by the time you're 20. Don't have a train run on you when you're a freshman in college. Don't get blackout drunk and sleep with 3 or 4 different guys at the next sorority bender. I saw all those things when I was in school. And girls have absolutely no accountability or responsibility for anything. It's always the guy's fault. It's the guy who has to be the gentleman. It's the guy who has to have priorities. It's the guy that has to have virtues. The guy who has to have accountability. The guy that has to have responsibility. The girl, none. None. Because in the end, women are easily taken advantage of. You can get her drunk and she'll do whatever you want. But you will be accused of raping her, drugging her up, taking advantage. You're not man. You're not a masculine. That's not what a gentleman would do. And in a way, that's true. I don't believe in getting girls drunk or drugging them up, but to sleep with them. It takes the whole game out of it. But uh, where's the accountability for the women? There is none. It's always on the man, and it's always on the white Christian heterosexual male most.
Need to
No,
be
it's a
doing
family,
this. Men
Andrew.
need-
The family.
Hang on. Let
The
me finish,
family,
man.
Andrew.
Men need to
Husband and
okay,
wife.
yeah. So let
Husband
me
and
let me
wife.
back up. Okay. Again, men need to do this. Men need to do that. What I'm talking about is what duties do women have in society? What are the actual women's duties towards men? Everybody is raised from the time they're kids how we're supposed to treat women. We all know how to treat women. We never talk about how men are supposed to be treated. That's almost never discussed, especially by how women are supposed to treat men, what their duties in society are. This has been completely dispelled. Guys like Tate have risen because Christianity itself has become a feminized religion, especially the Protestant sects has
There you go. This is a big beef that I have. And some of you may disagree with me, some of you may not. But we live in a more of an Anglo-American world, living on this side of the pond, and we're surrounded by I'm a cafeteria Catholic. I'm not going to tell you I go to church every Sunday, but we live in a more Protestant, Baptist, Episcopalian world, evangelical, Calvinist world, and those branches of religion are just pathetically weak. Pathetically weak. Catholicism, and many people have a lot of problems with it, for all its tradition and history and what people may say is out of touchness. It saved Western civilization. It's one of the three things that built Western civilization, right? Greek philosophy, Roman republicanism, and Catholicism. Not Christianity, Catholicism. And what this guy Andrew Wilson is saying is totally correct. It's the Protestantism that has really made this country and the Western world weak, in a sense that they allow women to go off the rails in avoiding men's leadership. They've allowed all this immigration stuff to come about. They've promoted alternate lifestyle marriages and unions. So I agree totally with him with that. This is it's also a religion thing. People have gone away from God, and they think that they are God themselves. Tommy thinks that.
become completely feminized. And it didn't used to punish masculinity at all. And now it does. And so where's the alternative? Where's the spiritual alternative? It's nowhere. And we need to get back to this fundamental question of what even is misogyny? Because I don't think that men kicking the crap out of each other, being brutes, insulting each other, hazing each other, even bullying each other is misogyny. Not only do I not think it's misogyny, I think it's perfectly healthy.
Yeah, but I don't think
I think it's
I don't
perfectly
think that's
healthy,
misogyny.
well-adjusted.
Is that the
Yeah, but
argument?
So what he said here, bullying now is it's almost a federal crime, and the reason why is because kids are just weak. They'd rather, overdose and try to kill themselves rather than handle things the way my generation did or the generations prior. If a kid bullied you in school, if your dad found out about this, your dad would tell you, just like my father would tell me, you're not coming in the house until you get some bloody hands. You get fucked up, you get fucked up. But that kid's not going to bully you. You're representing my name, my family. You're not gonna be a pussy and come into my house. And listen, when it comes to bullying, the minute you punch somebody in the face, the bullying stops forever. You will never get bullied again. If you're going through something where somebody's bullying you, just smack them in the face. They may smack you back and they may hurt you, but you are now somebody that is a problem. You're not a punching bag. And what he said here is correct, and he may have said it with a twins of comedic flair there. But yeah, even bullying. Bullying is not toxic. It's a part. It used to be a part of life. And it's usually how boys figured out that they were not made of glass, and that you're gonna get a black eye, maybe a busted lip, but no one's gonna make fun of you because you stood up to a bully and may have gotten your ass kicked, maybe not. It would help you down the line. It's conflict, dealing with conflict, growing a pair.
That is not misogyny.
Well, no. Hang on.
Hang
How
on.
women see
Misogyny,
this is tone
misogyny
policing.
is where
They-
you have a hatred or whatever you want to phrase it towards women. It's not about men treating men.
Sorry,
It doesn't matter how
toxic
we treat-
masculinity is what I'm referencing here, and toxic masculinity is what they're claiming leads to misogyny. So what I'm talking about is these are all masculine traits. There's nothing wrong with them, right? When you're talking about misogyny itself, I want to know what that even is. Is it just asserting yourself to women, telling women no, telling them no, that's bullshit?
No, I
telling
would
them
say
you're
it's
wrong,
okay. Let me
telling them
answer
you're
you.
saying stupid things.
Andrew Tate says he's quite open about it. Women should stay at home. They shouldn't go out to work. They should do what he tells them. He's the king of the castle in his house. Blah 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 blah.
Why is that blah 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 blah? Men used to be considered a man's house is where he feels his most comfortable. He should be considered the king of the castle, especially if he's the one paying for it. If he's the one going out to work every day, paying that mortgage, paying the bills, you know what? Yeah, have my dinner ready. It's the least you can do. Give me a little bedroom fun a couple of times a week. It's the least you can do. Squeeze out a couple of kids for me. I mean, what's with the blah blah blah? We're trying to change the natural order of things that has been going on for literally thousands of years. Women were never in control of anything in ancient Athens or Rome or the Etruscans. I mean, this is, or in ancient Egypt or in Persia. Are you nuts? Women knew their place, and they were happy for it. All this nonsense now that they were, miserable and then all this garbage. No, they weren't. Otherwise, things would have changed a long time ago. All right, this is getting a little long, so let's.
That is misogyny,
hear what the
isn't
laws-
it? I've got a
That's
daughter.
not miso-
I've
look,
got a
it's not
13-year-old daughter. I
misogyny.
don't want her thinking
Yeah.
she can never leave the house. She's somebody's chattel.
It's not never leaving the house. Look, it is true that the world would be a better place if we didn't have it inverted and women did have a natural role at home and that was glorified and that there was government propaganda around the nuclear family and keeping women home. Why do you want to outsource the raising of children to strangers instead of your wife? That's a way better society. Why do you want your best and brightest women forced to go to a workplace instead of the best and brightest women staying at home raising their children? That's a way better system. It's always been a better system.
I guess we're talking
It's
freedom
like,
of choice.
that's not
No one's forcing
misogyny.
women to do anything. It's
All right. The simping has just gotten out of control. But I guess you could see what I'm what I was trying to get at here today about this this whole debate of toxic masculinity. My question and my beef is, again, what do women have to offer men? None of these four people answered this man's question. Nobody will ever answer my question. And I ask the question all the time, and nobody can answer it. They always come up with a stupid reply of, well, your mother gave birth to you. That should be enough. And nah. That's not enough. I'm very interested to find out what you think, as always. Please put it in that comment section. And how do we leave you? Well, we leave you with the same outro all the time. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Let me know if you like these reaction videos. Sometimes I think they go a little too long. But be careful out there, gentlemen. As you can see, even men have been possessed. Even those boys over there have been possessed by Satan. He is always busy, and he's very, very good at what he does. Be a man, unlike those guys. Have a backbone, unlike those guys. Because masculinity and common sense are worth standing up for. We'll see you.